We've now come to the fourth and final part of what makes a contract of employment legally binding in the law of England and Wales. This last one, perhaps the most complex and sometimes the most challenging to prove, is an intention to create legal relations. Now, I can see people in my mind's eye rolling their eyes at this one because it may sound very straightforward, very matter of sense. After all, we're signing a contract. Of course we want there to be some kind of legal relationship. Unfortunately, it might not be that straightforward, but it doesn't need to be necessarily difficult either. It could simply be a clause in the contract that says that the contract is intended to be governed by the law of England and Wales, and if there are any problems with the contract, the courts of England and Wales will deal with that dispute and the interpretation of the contract. Or, where the risk is perhaps higher, you might want something a bit more involved and a bit more specific, such as asking the employee or senior employee to receive independent legal advice from a lawyer before they sign the contract. Now, those may be very persuasive evidence that the contract isn't just some nice fluffy promise, but is actually intended to be a legally binding contract. So let's take our example of Mrs. X and Blogs & Co., where the IT manager role has been offered, accepted, and there is payment being made in relation to it. In that situation, let's say that Mrs. X, as the IT manager, would be a senior employee of Blogs & Co., alongside having the clauses in the contract saying that it is a contract that is intended to be governed by the law of England and Wales and interpreted by the courts and tribunals of England and Wales, who have jurisdiction, as we call it, to consider any disputes relating to that contract. Mrs. X is also asked to go and get independent advice from a lawyer before she starts her employment or signs the contract. All of that is persuasive evidence that this is a contract and not just some fluffy promise, and that it is intended to have legal weight attached to it. Therefore, an intention to create legal relations. So that is the fourth and final pillar of what is required to make a contract of employment legally binding in the law of England and Wales. I'm Richard Hiron, also known as the Hironator, and I'm an employment law solicitor.